All right, gather round because Uncle Three's got a story for you tonight. Tonight is the 8th night. This time we're taking a trip to Taiwan, where a truly unsettling tale unfolds. A story that's not just a terrifying ghost story, but also a crime drama and one filled with immense sorrow. It all happened back in 2013 in a place called Yunlin County. Now, here's the thing about this story. It actually has two versions. There's the one that hit all the headlines and was widely reported by the Taiwanese media, the one most people know and accept. But then there's the real story, the one that's far more mystical, far more spiritual, and truly gives you the creeps. Let's start with the version that was plastered all over the newspapers. Back in 2013, in the rural parts of Yunlin County, Taiwan, a worker was going about his day when he spotted something bobbing in the water, dressed in red. At first, he just shrugged it off, thinking it was just a doll. But 6 days later, when the water had receded a bit, he got a horrifying shock. It wasn't a doll at all. It was the body of a little girl, maybe around 2 years old. She was wearing a light pink short dress, and yeah, she looked eerily like a doll. Initially, everyone thought it was just a tragic drowning accident. But a whole month passed, and no one came forward to claim the poor child's body. When the forensic team took a closer look, they found multiple injuries on the girl's body. This was clearly a murder, not an accident. The Yunlin County Police started their investigation. They noticed the girl's clothes were way too thin for the winter weather at the time, only about 10 degrees Celsius, and she was just in a short dress and a short-sleeved top. They went door to door, asking if any family had lost a child, but nobody knew her, and she had no identification on her. A few days later, a young woman, probably in her early 20s, walked into the police station in Shiai, south of Yunlin County, to make a report. She was clinging to a small doll and kept repeating, "My daughter is gone. My daughter is dead. Abandoned." She was crying and sobbing, clutching that doll, constantly asking, "Are you cold? Do you want anything to eat?" The police were skeptical at first, given how late she was reporting and her strange behavior. But when they showed her a photo of the little girl's body from Yunlin, the young mother immediately broke down. Finally, the mother, identified as Ms. Wang, confessed that the killer was her boyfriend. Ms. Wang had been married, but she had an affair and left her home with her 2-year-old daughter to live with her boyfriend, a man named Li Yizha. One night, the little girl wet the bed while she was sleeping, which sent Li into a furious rage. He carried the girl into the bathroom, used shoelaces to hang her on the shower rack, and then turned on the cold water, spraying it directly on her. Despite the freezing winter weather, he continued to torment her until the little girl was stiff, with cold and couldn't move anymore. After that, both of them stuffed the girl's body, along with her toys and clothes, into a blanket bag. They then rode a motorbike to a nearby canal and dumped her body, hoping the current would carry her far away. Li even stood there, bowing a few times, as if begging for forgiveness. Before they left, the little girl's body drifted for about 10 kilometers through the canal from the Hubei area to Yuanjiang commune in Yunlin, before that worker finally discovered her. And that, my friends, is the version that was widely reported in the Taiwanese media. But the real story, the one that's steeped in the supernatural, is what the local folks around there started calling the doll returns. And Uncle 3 is about to tell you that one. This true story, the spiritual one, began in Taiwan specifically, in that little county of Yunlin. People in the area started spreading rumors about a ghost. More accurately, they kept seeing a doll. This doll moved from one place to another. Now, it didn't exactly walk or float supernaturally. What people meant was you wouldn't see it in the morning, but then in the evening, it might be at house no 1. The very next evening, you'd find it at house no 3, just like that. At first, folks didn't pay much mind, but then it started moving from house no 3 to house no 5, then 6, then 7. Along that entire stretch of road, house after house, everyone who passed by started seeing this doll. It was small, not big at all, but for some reason everyone who looked at it felt an unsettling, almost magnetic force. Then one day, a homeless man, who usually scavenged for odds and ends and begged for food in the county, was looking for a place to rest after his day's begging. His favorite spot was under the Wei Liao Bridge, and there he saw something he would never forget. The old beggar saw a little girl eating scraps of food that had fallen on the street. At first, he just thought it was another poor child, just like him, trying to survive. That thought touched his heart, and he still had a little leftover food he'd gotten that morning. So the old beggar decided to go closer and share some with the child. But as he got near, he let out a loud scream and ran into the street, banging on a house door because he was so terrified. He then passed out. When the homeowner opened the door, they helped him up, gave him first aid, and called the police. When the police arrived, he managed to tell them that as he approached the child, he looked closely and realized it wasn't a child at all. It was a doll that was picking up food and putting it into its mouth, acting just like a real person. It wore a tattered dress and red socks, but its face, it had absolutely no expression. But of course, the police didn't believe him, and neither did the people in the area. Who would ever believe a doll could stand up and eat? The police were completely unconvinced. But because the man was genuinely terrified, the police suggested he go to a mental hospital. However, he was homeless and had no money or social security. So they released him, and he went around the entire area, telling his strange story to anyone who would listen. And you know what? A lot of people actually believe the old beggar's tale. Why did they believe him? Because the ones who believed were the very people who lived in the houses where that doll had appeared. They had seen it, watched it move over time, and they, too, felt something very strange about it. So people started calling the police department. House after house. At that time, when the police received calls from residents, they didn't feel scared. They actually found the problem quite intriguing. You see, cops usually aren't afraid of ghosts, and they tend to rely on science. So to calm down the many residents in the area, they started a public investigation. But for them, this investigation was more like a training exercise, a way to track the doll's movements and see if it was truly as eerie as people claimed. And wouldn't you know it, they actually found that haunted doll. When they finally found it and brought it back, a whole lot of unexpected and downright bizarre things started happening. The first strange thing was that when they removed its head, they found quite a lot of food inside. And in this food, there were at least 100 different types of items. I'm talking meat, fish, pastries, fruits, everything. And the weirder part? Most of it was charred, like it had been burned. When the forensics team examined those food items, they found that some of it had been inside the doll for 6 months to a whole year. That made everyone wonder, who put these things there? And how could food survive for a year without decomposing? Or attracting insects? It just seemed to be charred. Because of all these strange reasons, the forensic department conducted a full examination, testing every single food sample inside that creepy doll. It took 3 whole weeks to announce the results. And during those 3 weeks, that poor county didn't experience any spiritual phenomena at all. But here's the truly shocking announcement from the forensic department. At least 4 of the meat samples were human flesh. Can you believe that? Human flesh. At that point, the police immediately launched an investigation because this was now a major case. They realized this doll might hold a story no one could have imagined. In addition, the doll had another peculiar detail. It wore a red outfit with white lace. But the fabric wasn't some ordinary material used for other dolls of its kind. It was a very high-quality fabric, the kind meant for real human clothes. When the police searched for similar dolls sold nationwide, they found that manufacturers had never used that type of fabric for dolls. So they kept a sample of the fabric and started investigating its origin, as well as the dolls. When they analyzed the DNA from the human flesh samples, the police made a chilling discovery. All the meat samples came from members of a single household in Yunlin County. And guess what? That house was currently occupied. When they went to talk to the family living there, they said they had only bought the house about 3 years ago and hadn't noticed anything strange. The police dug deeper and found out that this very house had been the scene of a horrific massacre years ago where 5 people died. A husband, a wife, 2 sons, and a baby girl who had suffocated. To this day, that old case had never been solved. This revelation shook the entire small town. People finally started believing that something truly unnatural was going on. Why did this doll have the flesh samples of the people from that house? And the most spine-chilling detail of all, the doll was wearing the exact same fabric that had been wrapped around the baby girl from that ancient massacre. Who dressed it? Who did this? The police now treated it as a major, high-profile case and started investigating everyone in the surrounding area. At this point, people and even the police started leaning more towards the spiritual side than the scientific. They even invited very famous shamans to come help. And these shamans said that it was time for these wronged souls to cry out for justice. They hadn't died naturally. Someone had murdered their family. And if they wanted to know who it was, simple. Leave the doll in the neighborhood where it used to live. It would go straight to the house of the person who killed them. The shamans explained that the hatred of the doll and this family was so immense that the doll was acting as a representative spirit, carrying the flesh samples to call for justice and lead them to the killer's home. Having invited these spiritual masters, the police felt they had to believe them, listen, and follow their instructions. And believe it or not, it actually happened. The police at this point had seen similar unsolved cases in their territory, so they decided to listen to the people's advice. They placed the doll and set up cameras to monitor it. The doll vanished for 5 days. More accurately, they'd see it at night but by day it would be gone. Then, about 3 or 4 days later, a resident called the police. They'd spotted the haunted doll standing right outside an old, dilapidated house. The police decided to go inside and question the people there. They found only 2 men in the house, an old father and a younger man. The younger man used to be a locksmith, and then he became a butcher, slaughtering pigs. This immediately caught the police's attention, connecting back to the old murder case where the victims had decisive stab wounds, suggesting the killer was skilled with a knife. The police used their professional interrogation techniques on the younger man. The old father knew nothing. The younger man fought back hard, denying everything because there wasn't enough evidence. As things grew desperate, the police brought out the doll, hoping it would somehow provide a clue. And you wouldn't believe it. When the young man saw that red cloth doll, he completely freaked out. He screamed and yelled, "Don't follow me anymore. I'm so scared, don't follow me. Every night for years, I've seen your family. I know I was wrong." Right then and there, he confessed. It was a moment that bewildered the Taiwanese police, the public, and the media at the time. Why did he confess just by seeing that doll? And that's how a major murder case was finally solved, all thanks to a red cloth doll. Or rather, a haunted. When the killer finally opened up, he admitted he'd killed the family, including the baby, in a fit of temporary rage. He acted quickly, then fled the house and hid. This gruesome murder happened sometime between the 1990s and 2000s, when there weren't many cameras on the streets or in homes. That's why the case had remained unsolved for so long. In fact, many murder cases from that period are still unsolved. To this day, the sources say that the spirits of the victims, after all those years, returned to seek justice for themselves. They came back in different forms, as dolls, as spirits, to find the person who had murdered their family.